The Matrix. Welcome. Big welcome to you. I've recently been a little surprised, should I say, when listening to channels on YouTube that have suggested that the reality we live in is really the Matrix, or at least a Matrix. Like me, these people are concerned at the massive attack on truth that has occurred recently and suggest that this is an attempt to control the narrative and to construct a new reality. But this leads them to question if the reality that we currently live in is also constructed. Why surprised? Because to a large degree I agree with them. Well, these aren't magicians. These are vloggers who normally seem very committed to what I call materialist science, or at least to logic. Now, I myself have pondered, could we really be in a matrix? I prefer to call it a game because I don't want a direct comparison with the film franchise. Even though the film franchise might help you to comprehend these ideas, it seems to me it could lead us down a sort of almost a semi-religious path to see everything as directly from the Matrix. Certainly I've suggested that our reality follows our beliefs and that it's co-created by us with God. So maybe now is the time to explain my thoughts, hence this vlog. But in doing this vlog, it made me ponder the contradiction that we co-create reality with God. But what of others within our reality? Well, in thinking about the Matrix, I've somewhat answered this conundrum. Or maybe, you may argue, just complicated it. And I do have to warn you that this is a conceptually quite difficult vlog that I'm doing here. So forgive me if you feel all I've done is complicate issues. Hegemony. The concept of hegemony was developed into a sociological theory by the Italian philosopher Antonio Gramsci. Although similar concepts were developed by the Hungarian Gyorgy Lukacs, and all of these were really developed by the German philosopher Herbert Marcuse. Some of you will have been told and maybe believe that these are the founders of cultural Marxism, and therefore have already switched off because you think I'm going to argue in favour of some sort of Soviet-style totalitarian state. Let me reassure you, I'm only interested in all of us becoming closer to God. But if you are interested in these concepts, then I urge you to look at my vlog, The Vampire Castle, before proceeding, because this explains to you that the fact that you believe it's cultural Marxism, believe that it's heading towards totalitarianism, is really an example of the working of hegemony. Antonio Gramsci developed the theory of cultural domination, which hegemony already existed as, but to include social class. Hence the sort of sociological theory of cultural hegemony looks at the social norms that establish the social structures, i.e. the social and economic classes, which the ruling class establish and exert cultural dominance to impose their worldview. It therefore justifies the social, political and economic status quos as being natural, inevitable, and indeed beneficial to everyone, rather than an artificial social constructs benefiting solely the ruling class. Now, I've argued that right now truth seems to be being destroyed by psychopaths, that we can no longer trust the media, politicians, business leaders, and even the experts, or should I call them scientists. And we're being subjected to an unprecedented level of censorship which distorts what we can express, and with it, what we can even think. So we're censored from saying that large corporations make profits, even though they have a legal obligation to do so. And that we're witnessing a major effort to control and distort our reality. Many see this as an attempt to institute a dystopian control system on humanity, that we're being led into a 1984. Now, I don't really go along with these theories, but absolutely do see elements of a new and more authoritarianism that seems to be being led by what I describe as the surveillance capitalists. So this very platform has been highly active in this sort of new censorship, and I would include them in, broadly speaking, within the surveillance capitalists. The Matrix. So what has surprised me is not that other channels have spotted the control of the narrative and a move towards 1984 or even the Hunger Games, but these vloggers have questioned the nature of what we call our current reality. So they are arguing that we already live within a constructed control system. You might like to see this as a brave new world. And indeed, what I find difficult to fathom is if we already have a brave new world, why would we want to move to a 1984? So all that is happening is seen as a move towards a new control system, rather than imposing a control system on us. And again, I've got some sympathy with this view without completely buying into it. And I suppose my biggest concern is that it often requires a concept of an evil genius, or at least a cabal of evil geniuses. I therefore prefer to see it as a move towards virtual accumulation, with virtual or digital currencies within a metaverse that's divined and controlled by the surveillance capitalists. Some have argued that we really do live in the matrix, or at least a matrix, to illustrate this point. And certainly I've considered and postulated, I've probably rejected it, that we're all just a green goo in a jam jar, connected by wires to these other green goos. Of course, a related theory to the Matrix is that we live in a computer simulation. A theory which comes close, I guess, to my own beliefs, although I prefer to call it a game, largely because I'm not sure that it is a computer simulation. I see that as a metaphor. So in my third novel, The Londo and the Green Queen's Revenge, I quote, "What if the game is developed by pardon me, by the humans of the future, a sophisticated Sims, and that our joys and miseries are just another's entertainment? Imagine your turmoil keeping a commuter entertained on their mobile phone. Or worse still, this game is being used as a marketing simulation to test new products, their channels and their marketings. I know it's better not even to contemplate, isn't it? Oh no, I've just had another thought. What if the simulation is used for the testing of new pharmaceuticals and vaccinations as an ethical alternative to testing on animals? even if you find this all too much to consider, at least consider a military strategy simulation, which includes false flag operations, maybe including September the 11th. But for now, the really frightening twist, the general hypothesis and my propositions are both unprovable and irrefutable. In other words, this is a hypothesis which will always be amongst our darkest of thoughts. Perhaps our journey in life is simply an intellectual game, mirroring what I falsely believed was the game of life. After all, where we stop in our logic is completely arbitrary. So where should we decide to jump off in terms of this journey? Well, for now, it might as well be to consider that we are indeed engaged in a game, but not a game within a game, or a game within a game within a game, and that we see what we see as reincarnation is not recycling, but an opportunity to learn more. In spite of everything, I instinctively reject conspiracies, aliens, and the notions that we're controlled by an outside force other than God, whilst accepting some of the implications. Oh dear. Does this vlog only add to this intellectual game, rather than my attempt to cut through it? Certainly my wife would accuse me of complicating things. After all, my thoughts are my ego, which I really must suppress. Time and causality. Now, I'm certainly convinced that time is non-linear and that the future can influence the present and indeed the past. But I do generally take this far further, that time is a human construct and constraint, that there is only a present, no future nor past, only thoughts about the future and the past that we write on the fly. Now, a Canadian magician whose vlog I watch and I've got a lot of time for, I respect him very much, quite a deep thinker, expressed to me that maybe magic was really playing around on the timeline. So if we abandon this concept or constraint of time, then everything and anything is possible. And indeed, I believe it is. For if there is no time, there can be no causality. So both my wife and I can engage in a limited, and I highlight that word, limited form of time and space travel. And we do this by abandoning our beliefs and our restrictions. For me, I actually do it by weakening my belief in gravity. But if there's no time, surely there's no death and therefore no ghosts. There is no reincarnation in the form that most would see it. But equally, there is no day of judgment in the way that the Abrahamic religions see it. Quantum mechanics is so often seen as the antithesis of material science. But maybe it is simply the closest that material science comes to pondering the what is reality without time. In other words, what I'm suggesting is it's at the extreme, the furthest extent of material science before entering a new paradigm. It is here that the linear and the non-linear meet. For quantum mechanics has found that particles seem to influence each other, sometimes without physical contact, sometimes over thousands of miles. It also seems to suggest at times that the researchers' expectations can influence the results of experiments with particles, such as the double-slit experiment, which if you're not familiar with, I urge you to look up. So it's the double-slit experiment. But if there's no time, there's no need to invent a causality, because it no longer exists. Quantum mechanics sees everything as a potentiality, not a causality. Or as I have said, anything and anything is possible. Just some things appear more possible than others, but that is based on our beliefs or expectations. So everything is no longer a digital true or false, but a probability curve or a bell-shaped curve. If we shift along this curve, we can and we do experience what we had previously believed was impossible. In many universes theory, then each is a potentiality. But what it doesn't tell us is if we shift universes as we change our views on the potentiality, or simply experience new potentialities within ours. Now, most physicists, when they hear these sorts of arguments, will come out with the cliched argument, why don't you throw yourself under a bus and see what happens? Or punch you and ask you if it hurts. But all they are proving is that the events fit on this probability curve. They're simply imposing their beliefs or causality or subjective reality on us for all subjective paradigms. So we can feel their causality and pain, but we can escape this if we free ourselves from it by suppressing the ego. For if there's no ego, there is no individual, and therefore it cannot feel pain. But this would shift us to what almost all of us would see as an improbable point on the probability curve. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but it's only what professional sports people do all the time. And you may have, the phrase going through the pain barrier. So it is something that maybe we can comprehend. In short, I wish to suggest that everything's an illusion, a hypothetical probability, that the world is a reflection of the ego, or maybe, at this current time, the superego. Non-dualism. Now, I've consistently argued that we co-create our universe with God, but now I'm going to have to refine this. If all events are simply a potentiality created by nature, because there is no causality, then that event is a part of the ongoing creation of the universe. For there is no time, so creation is ongoing, if an ongoing means anything when there is no time. It's not being caused, it's just what is. And that is why we must submit to nature. This is at the heart of my argument that karma is not a judgment, simply nature's reaction, or if there is no causality, nature's evolution. The way to find God is through epistemology, through abandoning logic and its causality, allowing us the freedom to shift our universe or universes. But if we can change our beliefs about potentiality, then we change our illusion of reality or universe. I avoid taking this too far because it does come perilously close to solipsism. But as soon as Citigen are suggested, then God may truly be within us. It is the ego that makes this a dangerous thought to hold and prevents us from truly realising this and therefore becoming one with God. This theory is known as non-dualism. The theory that there's no causality created by either God or us, or co-creating it with God. And now you do find the concept of non-dualism within religions, particularly in Hinduism. The Upanishads contain a proto-Samkhya element and the form of the basis of Vedanta. The Avedanta Vedanta of Shankara's teaches that the atom is pure consciousness, and that a single pure consciousness, Savayam Praksha, is the only reality, and that the world is unreal. Non-dual forms of Hindu Tantra include Kashmiri Shaivism and Shaktism. Their view is similar to Avattaya, but they teach that the world is not unreal, but the real manifestation of consciousness. So very interesting change there. And of course in Buddhism there's concepts like the luminous mind and nirvana. Sufism does aim for a non-dualist concept, non-dualist oneness with God, as indeed does Kajawan, and also Christian Gnosticism, although most do not totally reject dualism. And this is really also the basis of the Jewish Kabbalah. And Neoplatonists teach there is a single source of all reality, the One, and this informs theosophy in the New Age. So non-dualism is the basis of mysticism, and for this reason it's been suppressed by the formal Abrahamic religions, as of course it would mean there's no need for a religious hierarchy nor orthodoxy. Indeed, non-dualists were tortured, paradoxically, so that they could love God. The attempts to control our reality, which I spoke of earlier on, they're imposing their causality on us, and therefore attempts to control our creation, or the creation of the universe. Or should I say a universe, for each universe is a potentiality. And now the way to suppress the ego is in exploring these thoughts is to escape logic and causality. Indeed, the ego is a creation of causality. Therefore, it's through unconditional love of all of creation. Through love, I have said that we raise our vibration. And in doing so, we move along the potentiality curve. So is a high vibration and power, and so love is a high vibration and power a low vibration. We therefore escape the control of others, not through fighting power with power, but through love. And that's exactly what I've said about black magic, that we fight it not with black magic, but love. So we raise our vibration and we move along the potentiality curve. But the greatest constraint on our ability to change our potentiality is our love for others. For this ties us to a causality. So the way to escape this trick of the ego is pure love. No, not focusing on our attachment to love of an individual or becoming too attached to things. As I have learned, if you truly love someone, you must set them free. But the same must also be true if we hate someone, before it's on the same scale as love. As I have found for those who send black magic to me and my family, I've already forgiven them, for they're simply a reflection of my own superego. This is true submission to nature. That all I believe others have done to me is simply me applying a concept of time to the potentiality, or causality if you like, because if there's no causality, how are they doing it? Which I can change through my vibration. So the same must be true of this hegemony I spoke of early on, or changing the control system. For everything really release is a freedom, as this deconstructs the ego. Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this vlog, and that, not only got something out of it, but provoked thoughts. I'm not here to push my beliefs, my thoughts on you, only to open up your own thinking, get you thinking about the world and life. When I started The Real Magic of Java, I believed that I'd only release them every month or maybe every 2 months. But now I find myself adding to this subsection once or twice a week. But please subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications for when I add new parts to this subsection. In part, the reason why I'm doing it more often is that the concept has moved from filming rituals and events that took place in Java to me also describing my beliefs and philosophy. And that does come in response to people expressing an interest in it. But of course, you know, me actually seeing rituals and events really doesn't happen so often. What I would say to you is that there's no attempt at subterfuge on my behalf. And when I do experience rituals, I will include them for you to see. And as I say, there's no way I'm trying to mislead you. And if I believe there is subterfuge, if I uncover it, I will point it out to you. I'm trying to be as honest as I can be. Now, please make comments, please ask questions, and I'll try to be as honest and open with you as I can be. Of course, there will be some of you who disagree with me, particularly when I talk in terms of my own beliefs, my own feelings. And, you know, you're welcome to alternative feelings, and we can agree to disagree. Sometimes I find that people on YouTube can be unnecessarily attacking and aggressive, and at times I don't restrain myself enough, and I apologise, but it's not my intention to put anybody down, you know. I know what I talk about can be emotive, and it can be challenging to your beliefs. But, you know, I'd love to enter an open discussion, a heartfelt discussion. But unfortunately, I often come across things that are, especially when people quote the scriptures to me, I've just no idea where it takes us, you know. Because I'm speaking from the heart, you know. I mean, you know, sorry, if you want to quote the scriptures at me, do so, but it doesn't have much impact on me, you know. I personally have no desire to impose my feelings on you, and I suppose when people try to do it to me, it washes off, you know. All I'm trying to do is I'm trying to share my feelings with you, and I'd love an open discussion on feelings. I really would love it, you know. And sorry if I don't always react as best I should. I try and cure this in myself, but I think this is part of the sort of narcissism of social media that I talk about so much in this subsection. So look, if you've enjoyed it, I really urge you to listen to other sections on this channel, particularly the 4 audio books that I've uploaded onto this channel. Yes, they are in a novel format, they are novels, but they go into much greater depth than my thoughts and feelings. Now, what I would say to you is these are sequential. So my thoughts and feelings develop as we go through each chapter and each book. So it does begin with 1.1, the Chinese cemetery. But, you know, hey, it's up to you. Feel free to dip in as you wish, as you want. And, you know, really heartfelt thanks for listening to this. And I really want to say a great big thank you, and God bless you.